Looking for clarity and confidence when it comes to decision making for your business? You've come to the right place. You're now listening to the Atomic Business Coaching Podcast.
Listen, man, a lot of people are starting to ask questions about purple collar professionals now, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. We're getting so many questions. Am I purple collar? Wait a second. I think I am. That makes a lot of sense. It's really a revolution, I think, that we're starting here. A whole new approach to doing things, seeing yourself in the right way, in the right light, so you can actually figure out what the hell you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it has been a revelation for us. It has been for many people who have discovered what this purple collar professionals are, what purple collar workers are. And you said, you got to figure out what you're going to do. So we're going to take today's episode to talk about one of the 5 key areas that we advise any one of our clients to do each and every day. And we'll do that episode maybe another time about the 5 key areas. But one of them is all about building relationships and relationship management. So we're going to take today to really talk about the importance of building relationships in business, the importance of managing them. We'll talk a little bit about what Tom and I do, and maybe we'll share some stories about what our clients have done. So let's go down that road, right, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk about this. I think it's such a critical part that a lot of people do not put at the forefront where it deserves to be. Relationships are the key to everything. When I was practicing medicine, relationships with the patients was critical to them trusting you. And it was because of that trust in you that they had a better outcome. When we don't have relationships and we don't have that trust and we don't have the opportunity to establish the trust, the outcome is impacted by that. And that's where relationships in business, in life are so key to your success and the better outcome that you're going to have.
Well, that's it. You said trust, right? So, that's really what a relationship is. You're developing trust with somebody else. And, of all my other businesses, I've never advertised for any of them. And they've all been built through relationships and through gaining the trust of others. And usually that trust has come by spending time, right? It's really going in there. And when we say develop a relationship, that's it. You don't just like, hey, let me get a relationship. I got a relationship. Here it is. It's a long-term thing. It's just like you did if you dated someone or married someone, you have to develop this relationship. It just doesn't happen overnight. But the key for purple collar professionals, as we've expressed in the past, they have 3 things that they're doing. This is why it's so difficult and why we are focusing our entire body of work on helping these people. A purple collar professional does blue collar work. They do white collar work. And then they have to run the business. So if you haven't listened before, that's what a purple collar professional is defined as. Someone who has a role that does both blue collar and white collar aspects to performing their duties. They then added this 3rd new responsibility of having a business. And that's really where the time comes in, is you have to develop relationships. So whenever you are the leader of an organization, the CEO of an organization, the owner of a company, you are required to do 2 major things. Number 1 is sales, right? You have to drive sales. Right. Okay. And the second piece of this is you have to go in and innovate. You have to come up with new products, new markets, learn new things. Well, those are your 2 main objectives as the CEO, okay, as the owner, as the primary leader. Well, sales derives from relationships. That's where they come from. Yes. Can you do advertising? Sure. Can, go hand out flyers and send emails? Sure. But the majority of business comes from relationship, especially for our purple collar professionals. Most of the people who are in that realm have repeat work. It's not transactional. It's constant, whether it be a plumber who's coming and doing your service annually to fix your boilers or anything, or a physical therapist that you're going to go in there and spend 12 weeks with, or an architect that you're going to do a project that's going to take 1 or 2 years to develop, build, and complete. These things are long-term ventures that you're going to go into with someone. And that's why relationships in our realm of purple collar professionals are so important. So why don't you talk a little about relationships, Tom?
Yeah. So listen, that was what the nature of my life coaching business was before you and I got into business together, is really building relationships. And, so many people don't understand that relationships exist everywhere. You have a relationship with almost everyone that you interact with. whether or not you develop that relationship is totally different. Like you mentioned before, transactions. So many people are caught up in just transactional relationships, and transactional relationships are very empty and very dead, and they're not adding any value to your life, right? And we've seen people when they go to networking events that are just looking for the transactional relationship. They want something from you and they don't want to really do anything for you. They just want your business, right? And those are people that you and I typically go, no, thank you. That's not what we're about. We walk into a networking situation and we say, we're going to build a relationship with this person and see how we can really help them.
Yep.
Not worry about how they're going to help us. And I think that's such an important piece of networking and removing the whole idea of a transactional relationship from the business world specifically. But relationships really, like we said, they build trust. It also, when you build trust with somebody who is maybe a client of yours or what have you, when someone else asks that person who they go to for support, who they go to for help, or who they're working with, closing that client is usually 10 times better or faster than closing someone that just answered a message on Instagram or Facebook, right?
Right.
Because there is a trust that this person has in your client, and now your client is expressing the trust that they have in you. And that in and of itself creates a positive force forward for you working with that other person. And I think that's one of the keys to understand is that the reason you develop relationships and you develop trust is because they do have so many benefits on the other side that you could never predict. You always want to go to somebody you can trust because think about it. Most times, 9 times out of 10, you'll see an ad on TV, but then maybe you'll find out somebody that works with that person and be like, can we really trust that individual? Can we really do that? Now,
Right.
the job of advertising is to build relationships with an audience and to establish some trust and some credibility. But it takes that much longer to do it from advertising than it does in building that personal connection with somebody. And I think that's what we have to really emphasize and focus on is that personal connection that you're building with someone. Like you said, it takes time.
Right. And, this is not an or situation. Should I build
Right.
relationships or should I do advertising? It's and. You can do advertising and build relationships.
Mhm.
So, we're talking a lot about trust. And one of the best ways for a purple collar professional to start building relationships is when they identify who is their client, who already trusts their client, right? So if you can build a trusting relationship with someone who is already a trusted person of your ideal client, that is like one of the best ways possible to do this. So I'll give you an example of us, right? We spent last week not only building, but also managing some of our existing relationships.
Mm-hmm.
In our industry, we get a lot of our business through accountants and bankers. And the reason why is they are typically a trusted advisor of the purple collar business owner, right? They're going to them to do their books for the accountant and their taxes. They're going to the banker to handle all of their cash flow situations and how is the money working and depositing checks and doing all of that. So we build relationships with these people. And what we have done over the past few weeks is we've simply managed existing relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So here's one of the things that we did. Last week, we invited one of our relationships out to lunch. We spent 3 hours sitting there, and not that you can do this every single day, but we spent 2 or 3 hours sitting there. And Tom and I had a very specific intention, right? We were going to ask them for referrals of very specific people. And this gentleman knew that's kind of what we were going in there to talk to him about. But Tom, how much time of let's call it a 2-hour lunch. How much time of this 2-hour lunch did we spend talking about that?
About 15 minutes, I think it was.
Yeah. And
It
when
wasn't
was
even
that?
long?
In the beginning, middle, or end?
It was in the middle.
Yeah.
It was if I remember correctly, it was the middle. Yeah.
Right. So during this conversation, we talked about each other's lives. We talked about, we asked this gentleman what his passion was and what he was trying to accomplish in his career. We asked him about what was going on in his life. We talked about some experiences Tom and I have had. And we were sitting there getting to know one another on a deeper level. And the funny thing is, I've known this gentleman for almost my entire life.
Right.
And even in that capacity, I learned a little bit more about him, and I know he learned a little bit more about me. And this was the first opportunity in person for him to meet Tom.
Right.
So it was a very unique interaction between the three of us that felt natural. It was there to have a nice lunch, but we all had intentionality out of this. So when you're building relationships, there should be an intention. And as Tom expressed before, it can't just be take, right? It has to be giving too. So a lot of these relationships, and almost every conversation I have with anybody, I typically end it the same way. Say, is there anything that we can do for you? Okay. If I'm the one who said, hey, let's go out to lunch because I want to talk to you about something, even when I'm asking, I still at the end say, hey, is there anything that I can do for you? Is there anything you need from us? Because that's how you continually build relationships. It has to be a two-way street. If it's a one-way street where all you're doing is asking, or all you're doing is giving, because you may be in that situation too, then you really don't have a relationship, right? That's an exchange. That's what we call commerce, not a relationship. And commerce typically requires compensation. So if you're going to be on one side of this relationship and all you're doing is giving or all you're doing is taking, there should also be compensation. When you're building a genuine relationship with somebody, it's a natural flow. You're constantly helping one another out with their own individual aspirations on what they're trying to achieve, whether that's in their business or their life or a connection. And these relationships that you build are vital to not only the success of your business, but to you as the owner. When you get to spend time with your relationships out there in public and in person, even better, or even if it's just 10 minutes on the phone, that connection allows so much more to happen than just business. Wouldn't you agree, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the more that you put yourself out there and you can manage the relationship, the more you get out of that, right? The newer things that come up, the different situations that you didn't originally think could come out of a situation, right? I'll take, for example, like my parents 2 years ago had a major crisis in their home and I needed a restoration company. And I had built a relationship with someone who was in that business who I could easily pick up the phone and call. And it happened to be Memorial Day, on Memorial Day weekend, that this happened. Because of our relationship and how I knew him, he was there in an hour fixing a problem that my parents were having. And he did that for me. And what I have done for him continuously is anyone who needs help, I tell him, call this guy. Help this guy out because he's a good guy. He's a do-gooder, as we often say. And because of that, because we had built the relationship, I was able to utilize that relationship to help my parents in a tough situation. But also it changed my whole relationship with him to make sure that I always send people to him. And that's one of the things that we always, even my home, my wife tells everybody that ever does work in our home, if you do good by us, we will do always good by you.
That's awesome.
Right?
I never knew that.
Like, and we constantly, like when we give people tons of work. We talk about our people, we talk about our contractors, and then everybody's like, oh, do you have somebody? Oh, we sell them to them and we do the branding and the marketing on their behalf because we're happy customers and clients and they did the right thing for us. And I think, and anytime we need them to do something in our house, we're always made a priority. We're always put up front because we're helping them and they're helping us. And that's what the beauty of building that bi-directional relationship is all about. And you can help your own business grow by just having healthy relationships with other people in any capacity, not just another business owner. Building relationship with your customers, building relationship with your clients, building good relationships with your vendors, because having those good relationships will help to get better referrals in the future, help you to pay less in some cases, because people will work deals for you and negotiate on your behalf and even introduce you to people that you may need in a situation. And that's the beauty. It just fosters over and over when you go at it from the right position and the right perspective. And that's what I think is so important about it.
Yeah, and that's, a lot of people may be listening to this and like, wait a minute, are you guys just talking about referrals? And
Right.
yeah, referrals is a part of relationships, right? And there is a bidirectionality to a referral source.
Right.
And a lot of relationships are referrals. But sometimes it just comes back down to having a relationship with the person directly that you're going to be doing business with as well. Like, for instance, we have an architect, and one of the main agendas over the next year is to build 12 really strong relationships. Now, he has some very good relationships now, but it's about managing those relationships and developing them. And he is building them with his ideal customer, not necessarily that this person would then refer him to that person, or like I'm talking about with our accountants or the bankers, or, Tom sending jobs back and forth to the restoration company. These relationships that they're building are with their exact client. Now, those clients that you have that are long-term and have multiple pieces of work that you can do, I'm not talking about, giving them gifts. Because a lot of people will be like, yeah, I already build relationships. I take them to the ball game and I buy them a holiday gift and I send a card on their anniversary and things. That's more customer service. What relationship building really is learning about the other person, learning about their desires, learning about their needs, understanding what drives them. And this is truly the hardest thing you can do in business, because you're there to make more money. You're there to be there, and for lack of better words, for a selfish reason. Hey, I'm trying to build my business. I'm trying to get more business. I'm trying to be referred to new clients. But if you can step away from that and take yourself out of that situation and genuinely build a relationship and be curious about the other person and see how you can help them, the byproduct is those people want to do more business with you. They do trust you and they may want to refer you out. And that's really how you can cultivate this. But here's the thing. Now you're probably saying, wait a minute, Adam. You're talking about purple collar workers. You already said they're overwhelmed because they do the blue collar stuff, the white collar stuff, and now they have to run a business. And now you want me to go be a relationship builder? Like, what the hell, bro? I thought you were trying to make my life easier so I can, 10x and work less. Well, here's the thing. You get to decide as a purple collar business owner what you want to do. And we have 3 clients that we've worked with that all have had to make this revelation that I need to start building more. They made this revelation, I have to start building more relationships to generate more sales. So, Tom, why don't we take them through the 3 different scenarios? Why don't you start with the restoration company?
Yeah, I mean, so restoration companies, they need a lot of different resources. They need plumbers and electricians and contractors, because this restoration business in particular, they're doing full service, stripping it down to the bare walls, to repairing it and completely putting it back together, right? It's full service restoration. And, they met with another client of ours that's a plumber, and they are building a relationship now that's mutually beneficial to both of them. But it was through our introduction, through trusting both of us, to be able to say to the head of the restoration company, hey, you really need to meet with this guy. He seems like a really good guy. He's really good at what he does. And now it's only going to enhance the level of service that restoration company is going to be able to provide. So
that is the relationship that he is building. But here's where I wanted to come at this from a different angle. Is,
okay.
This gentleman, when he started in his restoration business, he was really focused on the blue collar stuff. And then he had to be moved into the white collar stuff. And then as he ran a business, he had to take this over.
Right.
He never really built relationships. He did it naturally because he's just a really awesome guy and he's so personable and approachable and he really does care. And he is a natural born salesperson without having to be a salesperson. When I really approached him and said, hey, you have to really start building and developing relationships, he's like, but I got to go do the blue collar work. And I have to come back to the office and make sure all the reports are filed and the claims are done. And I'm trying to figure out, working with you guys, how to run the business. When the hell do I do this? So how did we start getting him to have the ability, Tom, to go out there and build relationships?
Well, one, we helped him to take care of home first. He had to hire people and he had to have other people that could help do the work. But we also encouraged him to bring, he did a bunch of breakfast meetings with a bunch of people. He started to meet with people outside of his regular hours. He did a lot of the different activities. But the way we did that was we tried to show him what he needed to delegate to other people.
But wait, let's go back for a second. So
yeah.
He did these breakfasts and he went into a plumbing facility and just had bagels and lunch and everything else. Right. But he had to spend extra time, guys. He had to spend extra time doing this. But here was the result. Because he spent that extra time, he built the relationships. Because he maintained and developed and deepened these relationships, those people started to send him business. When he started getting more business, he made more money. When he had more money, he was able to hire more staff to go do the work, which then freed up even more time for him to go build more relationships.
Right.
And now the majority of his work is spent on building relationships and running the business. He doesn't do much of the white collar stuff. He doesn't do much of the blue collar stuff. Yeah, he still has to here and there,
Right.
but it's not like priority number one of his day. It used to be priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe if I'm lucky, I'll get down to developing some relationships. But because he expended a little bit more energy and money in the beginning, he was able to build them, which generated more revenue, which allowed him to hire people, which allowed him to go back to what he and what I believe is his natural talent.
Right.
Which is just being a human being. He's a really good human being. And like, you want to go out and have a beer with this guy. You want to spend time with him. Like when he has to leave, you're like, man, I know you got to go work.
Right.
And that was through the ability happened by going through this process.
Right. And he's much less stressed because of all of this. Right. So like the positive outcome to this is he built all these good relationships, which gave him the ability to put more time back into not just the relationships for his business, but even his personal relationships, his relationship with his wife and his kids, his family members, because he has more time to do those things because now he has the stream of income that allows for that to happen because of the relationship. And that's really what relationships in business should always benefit is how does it turn into making my personal relationships better? And I think this is such a great example. And the same thing with, our architect too. He's building 12 really solid relationships and he has a bunch of solid people with him. But those people that he's already managed the relationships and had good experiences with, they have given him a lot of the work that has helped him to really build more this year. Right. And it really helped him to get to this next level where he could go hire 2 people like he did so that he can spend more time building new relationships and managing the current ones.
So let's talk about him for a second. So this is a different perspective is he was already building relationships. He already had great relationships. What was holding him back and kind of still does here and there, and that's why our work together has proved to be more valuable because every time we recognize it, we spot it and adapt to it and move forward. He already had great relationships that were sending him business and that he was genuinely going above and beyond for giving back to them in one way, shape, or form. Where his lack is he spent so much time on the white collar work. Okay. He was spending so much time on reports and making sure every little detail on the paper was correct that he didn't have the time, number one. But the real problem was he didn't have the value in himself. He didn't believe enough in how amazing he actually was.
Right.
And what he had the ability to do by working with us is start to generate this confidence in that he really is one of the top guys in his industry in all of New York. And once he gained this confidence, when he went back out, he could speak to these relationships at their level. Now, I'm not saying before he was below their level, but he had himself below their level because he's like, who am I? Right. I'm just this architect guy who started a business and I used to work for some of these people.
Right.
And you look like you want to say something, Tom.
Yeah. I mean, relationships, when they're positive like this and you have that ability to do what he did, you remove the imposter. Because the trust that comes from the relationships, there is no room for the imposter. People respect you for what you do and how you do it and who you are because they trust you. They want to work with you because they know they're going to get a good product or a good outcome. And that's what really has worked for this person in particular. I mean, his whole level of confidence has soared through the roof in the last year that we've worked with him because he sees how much he is valued by other people. But a lot of that has come through his pre-existing relationships with them that he's only made stronger this year.
Right. And it's a beautiful thing to watch because from day one, he's so super talented. And it's like, he just had to have the ability to go out there and say, hi, my name is, and I am, and that's it. And he's doing that more and more often. And it's just so rewarding to watch someone who already knew how to build relationships be able to build bigger and better ones.
Right.
And it's amazing how much he gives back too, and he gives to other people and helps them as well. And it's really a symbiotic relationship, no pun intended,
Right.
with everybody that he's working with and developing.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's take it to the last one. We have a physical therapist that's been going through this journey over the last 6 months as well of, I got to do this relationship thing. And with physical therapy, right, most of your business comes from, unfortunately, surgeries or accidents, right? It's someone had something happen to them and they need to recover. So a lot of that comes from doctors. And why don't you talk a little bit about that, Tom?
Yeah, I think, one of the things is how do you convince or how do you get those referrals from those doctors? And it really, again, comes to building the right relationships with them. And for physicians in particular, it's the constant communication that really builds relationships very strongly. And I think that's one of the things that you have to approach all relationships with is this effective communication. And, this one particular individual, she struggles going out to visit doctors and whatnot. And it was really something that she really was not comfortable doing. And it gave her a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And we encouraged her to hire a business development specialist to go and build those relationships for her and on her behalf. And that's another way that you can approach building relationships with other companies and other organizations is how good your team is in building that relationship and how much your team could bring an effectiveness to that individual about who you are as the practitioner in your business. Because it's not everybody's strengths and not everybody likes to build relationships. But when you have people working on your behalf and they bring a good level of information and they bring good communication, you can really build a relationship with them indirectly because they can help support your follow through. Like in this instance, when a doctor refers someone to this physical therapist, she always sends back a thank you note or she sends back a note with the update on the client. And she sometimes even picks up the phone to talk to them. So she's working around her own insecurities around her relationships with them, but she is still fostering a relationship in a way that she is comfortable with. And I think that's one of the things that we all have to understand too, is we have to find what works best for us to build those relationships. It's not always face-to-face. You may not meet somebody for a long time. And we saw with COVID, everything was done over the phone or through an interaction that was not that typical face-to-face relationship.
And the key that I'm trying to get across here with showing these diverging ways of dealing with relationships is that there's no one singular right way to do this. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to accept who you are and how you want to do things. And then we can fill in those blanks. And if you're the type of person that had these relationships and want to keep developing, yeah, we can go that route. If you're someone who never did it before, but you have these natural abilities, great, we could take that. Or if you're the person that says, that is the last thing I ever want to do, we can hire for that. Right. So there are many ways to do this. But the one thing that you cannot do is avoid it. Right. In business, you must develop relationships, or you must develop people that will develop relationships. And that was really the major point of what we wanted to go over here. We do it ourselves as we consider ourselves purple collar workers. Most of our clients have either done that or are doing that. Some of them who are newer, we will have to cultivate that area of expertise or clarification that they need to delegate it out completely. But this is something that is super important and vital to the success of your business, to the success of your life, and achieving everything that you want to achieve. So, Tom, is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, I just think you hit the nail on the head. There's so many different ways to build these relationships. The key is if you're not comfortable, find the way that works best for you, because it is a necessity to everything that you do as a business owner. You cannot run a good business if you don't have good relationships with people, because no one's going to send you to business, especially in a service-oriented environment.
So with that being said, Tom, let's remind them all that I am Adam and I work on the business.
I'm Tom. I work on the owner.
Together, we are Atomic Business Coaching.
And we're in the business of helping owners.
We're in the business of helping purple collar owners.
We'll have to change it to that.
We will. All right, everyone. Have a great week.
All right.